All right, so this time around, we're going to be looking at something I went to on Saturday, the 9th, September 9th. It was from 10 to noon. It was a meeting put on by VIA here in San Antonio, Texas, regarding the Scobey project, the Scobey Complex Redevelopment Project here on the website now. From what I understand of this, the building is owned by VIA, the building and the land, and they're uh, basically trying to work with the city of San Antonio to develop a complex here, kind of a mixed use complex. I would say similar to something like the Pearl that was redone. But the question is that they have is, what does the public want uh, for this kind of mixed use center? And the meeting was an absolute just almost a waste of time. It wasn't really, in my opinion, what Via expected, which would have been residents. Instead, there were probably four residents that I know of, maybe five, um, and everyone else was in two different groups. It seemed like one of them was this coalition for tenant justice. Here they are. Here's their Facebook page here, as you can see, and they basically really didn't care about what was going on during the meeting. They had their own specific agenda that had to do with historical, you know, historically being unheard, and they wanted rents to be, you know, basically really cheap and it to be all multifamily. They honestly really didn't stick to the script of like what we were talking about in the meeting. We had different questions that were asked to us, and they basically just kind of did whatever they wanted to do. As far as they even got asked by the via facilitator to, can you stick to what's on topic here that we discussed? And the woman that went up there, she to talk about what their group had been asked to talk about, just basically gave her like a "oh no you didn't" kind of thing, and was kind of just like, "oh, this is what we talked about," but what they talked about had what they were presenting had nothing to do with what we all talked about. All right, small interruption there. Quick cut. And what we were asked was, kind of what we would envision for things that would be in this building. Let me see if I could show. The building itself has been vacant for decades at this point, and here's their proposed timeline. Nothing is set in stone. The developer that they're working with is a place called Dream On. Now, the guy that came up with the plan to here's a picture of the Scobey. It's a really small one, but this is it. It's kind of like this U-shaped thing. And right now, well, let me stick to what I was saying. The guy that came up with the plan that worked with Dream On, he passed away earlier this year. So there's a question as to like who's going to actually, run this plan that really nobody understood but the guy that came up with it. I don't really know if what's going to happen with that, or if these projects even going to go through. As you can see, this building, it would be great if they could do something with it, but the amount of damage to it, from what I've actually consulted with an architect, and he's familiar with this company, Dream On, and he was basically saying, yeah, they're dreaming on that they're going to get anything done. Because the amount that they allocated initially is not even close to what would be needed to, revitalize, revamp, renovate this building. They would pretty much have to knock it all down. The amount of like just materials used in the past that would have to be safely handled is probably not worth trying to renovate. Is what he was talking about. He's very familiar with the building itself, and he's very familiar with the company Dream On. He's an architect, so he's worked in the industry, being an architect for, I don't know, over 20 years at least. So big projects. I know the guy pretty well. So yeah, right now the phase that they're currently in is in basically nothing. They don't really have a plan. The plan that they do have, I don't really think they can go through with it at the current budget that they're being given by the city, and they don't really have any other funding coming in, which they would need. Which is why it's kind of important that they find out what type of businesses or anything like that would, what kind of residential they could get, funding through, as money profit, to get the thing running, to keep it running. You can't just put something up and then expect it to just magically stay there untaxed and not actually, you know bringing any money in. These developments have to bring some money in. The second thing is, because this is where this is located is the inner west side. It's basically part of downtown, just about. And where it's located, it is this. It's right next to a prison, a jail. By the way, yeah. So it's in a really rundown part of the city. This is there's the jail right there. And behind it, the parking, from what I recall being told, was that that parking isn't even owned by Via. So they wouldn't really have, they would have to either build in parking on one of these things or purchase the land from another guy that owns that land so they can have parking. It's a big mess. Right now, it's not, until some other large investor comes in. We're talking about like the McCombs, or maybe not them exactly, but you get the idea. If you're familiar with San Antonio, Red McCombs is a large family. They have a lot of money. HEB, but Via is also kind of, but anybody from one of these families that they have a lot of money and they help to develop the city, they would have to step in and provide what the city's not going to provide, and what potentially would not be made. The Pearl, when they redid that here in San Antonio, it was a Pearl brewery, and it was all run down, kind of like this. This is all parking for the prison. So it was all run down just like this, and basically they had to, the people that redid it, I can't remember the family name, but they took a massive loss. And they have taken a loss year after year, because they only did it because they wanted to revitalize that area. They wanted that project. It was it was basically, people talk about rich people not doing anything for the community or any of that. This was something done by a rich family that was able to do that for the city, and people still complain about it because, oh, it's overpriced for people. Remember, there was this one guy from the Party for Social Party for Socialism and Liberation. This is the other group that was at the meeting, and I'm just going to let you look at some of the postings here. It's funny, Black August commemoration. Everybody that was from this group was pretty mixed. There were Hispanic, white. There was like one Indian girl was there. A couple of black people that they all look like college age, because this is the age that people feel like they're able to step out in the world and become an adult and maybe effectively do something. And well, they're doing something, but I don't think they understand what they're actually doing. Well, they may understand to an extent what they're being asked or what they believe they're effectively doing, but the reality is these types of things that they ask for are unrealistic. This guy here is the guy that sat at my table, and he was flippant with all of his answers, and all of his answers were canned, and it was like robotic. One of the things he asked for was like, oh, we need, it's hard to even look at that. We need to make sure that all of the units that are there, they turned this into a big residential thing. Instead of like, hey, we're going to have offices and restaurants and, lots maybe for like an open air market, like for, garden, maybe not farmer's market type of thing, but like, something that could benefit that we don't actually have. Instead, they asked for, We need all of the residential units to be family units, 3 to 4 bedroom, and to be like, no more than $200 or free or in perpetuity, to be extremely low cost for people. Here you go. Their families reunite with incarcerated loved ones. That could be a good thing, depending on what we're talking about. But yeah, this is what they're about here, and this is the type of person that you have an idea, just what they're kind of about. They really want to do something, and they really want to feel like they're doing something effective and being effective. This is the Tenant Social Justice Group, for a coalition for tenant justice, tenant-led coalition fighting for safe, sanitary, and affordable homes. Sounds amazing. But they also want rents to not be more than $200, or, it just, they don't, what they're asking is for basically the working class people of this area where I live. These people don't live where I live. They're asking for us to pay for everyone else. And we have such a large amount of low-income housing already. They want even more low-income housing. My thing about this project was, we have to make sure that we're bringing in something that can be beneficial to the people in the area, something that we don't have. Things that they asked for were like, we need medical, but we have a hospital just right across the highway here that people walk to when they get shot or stabbed, from these like the Alazan Apache courts, where there's so much violence all the time, so much drugs and trafficking. It's just ridiculous. People getting run over by, it's crazy. Like the tenants fighting there amongst each other. It's craziness over there. It's just anarchy. But those are the kind of people that are asking for, hey, we want everything for free. We don't want over policing. I'm like, over policing? Do you understand? We're short about half the amount of officers on patrol than any other major city in the United States. We have very few. We can't even attempt to think about proactive policing, let alone the idea of over policing. This morning, there were shots fired at a street over. I've got my street in front of me, and then the street over is like an alley street. Shots fired there, and the cops show up, and these two guys come walking down the street. I've never seen them before. They're clearly the guys that were involved in something, and one of them's bent over, hunched over at the waist. If you've seen drug riddled bodies that are broken by drugs, that's one of those guys. And he was pushing a bike. The other guy had a flashlight, and I guess when they went by in front of my place, I got cameras up, of course, they ditched something like whatever stash they had on them. I think it was a drug deal gone bad. And what they ended up doing after the cops left, they kept coming up and down the street looking under cars, and then they finally stopped, and they kept looking under my neighbor's truck here for whatever they ditched. And they just, like an hour. And then even after a couple of hours, they were coming back like in a car, and they would jump out and they would look real quick, and then they'd head off. But an hour and a half ago, I saw one random other junkie, probably heard about it, and was looking on the street in front of my house, because they think they dropped their stash here. So there's, the hunt is on, the scavenge is on for like, hey man, where's that? Maybe I can get some free stuff. So that's the type of stuff going on around here. And these people are worried about over policing. One of them that talked from one of the groups, they were from the PSL group. It was some little blonde white girl with a mask on, of course, because I think most of them had masks on because they're worried about COVID or something. And the other guy that was at the table with her hadn't abolished the police. Hey, you know what? How about we drop you off over here where all this drug and crime stuff is going on, and see how long you last, because you clearly you're not from around here. Yeah, it wouldn't go well. You could say abolish the police all you want until you find out that it ain't what you think it is. Sure, there are cops that overstep their bounds. That's always going to happen in any group that has power over another group. And that's why they need to be put in check, and they need to have oversight. But you cannot just get rid of an institution like the police, and expect that everybody's going to be happy and gonna follow the rules, because they don't follow the rules now, even when there's consequences. Although, as it is in our city, we don't really have too many consequences, thanks to our Soros-run district attorney, Joe Gonzalez, and certain judges out there that really don't care either. They're more for pushing progressive policies. What does this have to do with Scobey? So it goes back to low income stuff. If you constantly only have low income everywhere, I said, then how is it that as a kid you're ever going to see something better than what you're around? Because you're a product of being of the people that raise you, your parents, the schools you go to. You know, you're a product of your environment as well as what you internalize as well. But your environment is a factor in that. And if you just don't find something that or you don't innately have it in you to think, you know what, this chaos and anarchy isn't right, then you're gonna probably more gravitate towards the things that are chaos and anarchy, drugs and crime, and hey, let's do whatever we want, and we'll just, you know, trash everything, graffiti up everything, and stab each other and shoot each other. And I'm not being, you know, hyperbolic here. This is just the normal stuff, you know, 15-year-olds shooting each other and stuff like that. This is my area. Highest amount of opioid use in the area, and they want to bring on only low-income stuff. This one little blonde girl I was trying to say in this other group, she was saying that whatever they do, that they can't have any fences or gates around this, even though it's right there by the prison. Even though they were saying, oh, there's no community right there. I was like, oh yeah, there's a community. It's called a bunch of drug trafficking and prostitution. That's who I see always walking and hanging out in front of that building. So there is a community there already. It's the what they refer to as the unhoused. These people are not unhoused because they don't have any options, because not but a couple of blocks down is the Haven for Hope, which is the homeless mega shelter that has all the medical and mental health and you know, all these support services, job assistance and housing assistance and all of that. They don't, the people that are out there right now, they are not the homeless people that other citizens that are I guess compassionate and want the assistance to go to. The people out there now are criminals. They're drug addicts. They're being trafficked, human trafficked, meaning prostitution. They're people that are complicit because they're addicted to things, you know, and they know that being out there on the street, they're going to get almost no consequences under our current regime, the progressive wave that is actively destroying the city. So somebody told me, well, why even bother going to this meeting? You know, I'd be so frustrated, I wouldn't go. I said, well, that's exactly why these special interest groups, this coalition for tenant justice and this socialism and liberation, where they want everything free. They don't want everything, they demand. That's how they word it themselves. We demand that everything's free, that all these services are free, that anybody could walk up to this new development at Scobey and just, you know, set up a shop there and start selling stuff. Yeah, you can't do that. You can't just, you know, somebody's got to pay for the land. It's just the society we live in. I don't like taxes as much as the next person, but the reality is, if they have tax grants given to them, what do you think those taxes come from? They come from the, you know, they come from the people around here. And I know somebody had some snarky comment. One of the guys somebody I know had a snarky comment about, like, oh, well, you know, it's just all government assistant checks and stuff like that over there. And I'm like, no, it's not. Everybody on my block that I know of that works is all independent contractors, HVAC, you know, plumbing. These are not low-paying jobs. These are not cheap-ass jobs. You know, custom glass and windows. There's a guy that's a tow truck driver, independent. There's a guy that's a painter. You know, like into I'm not talking about like creative painting. I'm talking about actual work, like interior, exterior, residential painting. We work around here. Everybody around here works on their houses. They're upgrading, they're fixing, painting. My neighbor next door is like fixing his fence and gates. You know, we're just maintaining, we upkeep everything. And me personally, I, you know, clean up the back street that where we're at and kick people off of that street, because the city ain't gonna do it. It's too much for them. They can't attend to every little detail, so the neighborhood and all the residents have to do it. So I have a lot at stake. My family's been here in this area for over 100 years. We have a lot at stake. I actually got on the news. They asked if I wanted to, be on the news and answer a couple questions. I was like, sure. And I said, one of the biggest problems that we have in this area right now, and why I want to make sure that we bring in more actual business development, not just more low income housing, because that's not what we actually want as residents around here, as homeowners, as property owners. We want business development because that shows other developers that, hey, there is profit to be made in this area. And you cry all you want about well, what about there are so many low income, they say there's a deficit of like 100,000 or so families on a wait list or something like that for housing. But I wonder, where is that coming from exactly? Where, I'd like to see that breakdown, because these numbers that you're given by these special interest groups are always hyperinflated, and they need it to look worse than what it is in order to get more public, sympathy. And, you don't want to be the guy that says, you're not for public housing. I do want to be that guy, because we have enough around here as it is. And they dropped in Haven for Hope, which is the homeless mega shelter that has made my street, like a drug highway. Like I said, even this morning, there was a bad drug deal that went down, and these people are looking up and down the street, poking around. The only thing that keeps those people in check is us, the residents. And it's a full-time fucking job, man. Like that, I'm talking, that was like 5, 6 in the morning when that happened, and probably lasted till about like 9 or 10 when they finally decided to give up the goat. And then even I saw one junkie coming back and looking, it's like, get the fuck out of here, because their attentions turned from, hey, what drugs can I find on the street if anybody drops something, to, oh, look, that gate's open. And then somebody goes in the gate and a homeowner's there, and maybe something bad happens to that person. So all around, you can see how it's not a good situation to have just more of crime, which is what a lot of this low economic stuff brings. People say that, crime creates low economy. Sure, it does, but low economic areas also are where crime comes from. If that wasn't the case, then you wouldn't see the board lighting up with calls from these low economic areas, which are, who do you think makes the calls? We do, the residents. So the only people crying about over policing and all that are people that are mixed up in something dirty. That's it. But, you say these kinds of things, and, people assume that you're one type of person or another. Well, I'm from this area, and the people at this meeting, they were not. They were people that I had never seen before, and it was like they brought them in from somewhere else. And even when they asked them, well, where do you live around here? And I've been around here for not very long, or maybe a year. I guarantee they didn't live around here. So yeah, this Scobey meeting was a waste of time. The developer was not happy. Dream On. We talked to her name's Hulisa. I forgot her last name. And Via was definitely not happy, because these groups just talked about like usual, they used it as a platform to push their own agendas. Why? So they could have more power, so they could push their own agendas. Do they care about what happens to the area and for the people that live here? Nope. But they want to appear like they're doing the compassionate thing, even though they don't live here, even though they have no stake in it. So I think I'm going to end it there, because I think I rambled mostly. I'm not really doing a script here or anything like that, but hopefully you get a little bit better an idea as I do these videos of what's going on this inner west side here of San Antonio, and how progressives are ruining everything. Yeah.